Hello and welcome to Coding for FTC. In this video, we're going to cover selection statements. We're going to learn about if statements, else statements, and if-else statements for selection statements. We're also going to learn about while statements and do-while statements and for statements for the loop. First of all, the if statement. The format of the if statement is if condition, execute. Whatever is inside the curly braces is executed if the condition inside the parentheses is a true value. And please note that the curly braces are necessary, and while the parenthesis is not necessary, it's better for you to have them. Also, we can use logical operators or Boolean values we learned last lesson for the conditions. So if we want to make this statement always true, we could have an expression as if condition, where inside the condition we'll have things such as 3 equals 3, then execute. This is our sample code. So here you can see if gamepad1.left stick y is less than 0, then telemetry.addData left stick is negative. So what the code is doing here is it's considering if the statement inside the parentheses gamepad.left stick y is less than 0 is a true statement or not. And if gamepad1.left stick y is less than 0, then the functions inside the parentheses will execute. Next is the else statement. Else statements always come after if statements. And if the condition is false, then the else statement would run. So here it says else clauses are executed when above if statement is false. So instead of running the execute true condition, it would rather run the execute false condition. Here's another sample code. So we have up to this part last time. Now we have the else statement. So say gamepad1.left stick y is bigger than 0. Instead of running the telemetry.addData left stick is negative, this code would rather run left stick is positive. Now is the else if statement. This is basically a mix of the else statement and the if statement. And right here, if condition 1, then execute 1. And else if condition 2, then execute 2. So if the condition 1 is false, and then condition 2 is true, the execute 2 will run. However, if condition 1 is true, even if condition 2 is true, execute 2 will not run. Here's another example of else if. So if we had gamepad1.left stick y is less than negative 0.5. Say our value for left stick y was 0, negative 0.7. So if this is the case, the if statement would run, and it will skip through all the rest of else, if, or else statements. However, If our value was, instead of -7, let's say -3, then it would not go through the if statement as the condition would be false. However, it would be true for the else if statement, and this part would run. Now, it won't go through the rest of the else statements because we already have an if statement that ran. Now we're going to go over while statements. If statements were a selection, but now while statements are for looping code. The basic format of the while statement is while condition execute. So much like if statements, it has a condition where the condition must be true for this while statement to run. And if the condition is true, then the execute part would run over and over again until the condition becomes false. This is a simple example. While angle is less than -180 degrees, well, no degrees, then angle plus equals 360. Remember that I told you plus equals means x equals x plus whatever value. So if we have, say, an angle of -270 degrees, we would add 360 degrees to it, which would make it 90 degrees. And we'll go back up to the top after we ran through this code. And then we check the condition again. So if the condition is true, this code would run again. But we have our angle as 90 this time. So the condition is false. As the condition is false, we would skip through the code and go to the next block of code. Next is the do while statement. While do while statements are a little bit similar to while statements, they have one critical difference. It's the do executes here, and then the while condition follows. This critical difference makes it so that it executes one it executes the code inside the braces, then checks the condition. And if the condition is true, it would go back to the execute part. This is the do while statement. Notice that the while follows the curly braces. So once the code meets this part right here, it executes the code. Then it meets the while part. So it'll see if the condition inside is true or not, and if the condition is true, it go back up to the do part and run again from there. If it is not, then it will just skip. It won't skip, it would just continue. So say I have a equals 9. Then we would do a plus plus, which will equal a equals 10. And since that doesn't satisfy the conditions, as a is bigger than 10, we just skip through the code. Do while statements allow us to run the code one time before considering the conditions. So if we have any case where we would need to run a code once before considering anything, this would be the code to use. For statements are a bit like while statements. For statements and while statements allow us to repeat code again and again. But the critical difference is that while statements just look at the condition to see if it's true or not, for statements allow us to just specify the number of times we want to run the code. The basic format of for statement is for start, semicolon, condition, semicolon, update, then the code you want to execute. For int I equals 0, semicolon, I is less than 4, I plus plus. What this means is we're giving a value for to start, int I equals 0. This I here, it doesn't have to be an I, it can be J, K, L, but we normally use I for just as a convention. And remember that since variables only have a scope within their block of code, this I could be used anywhere for other for statements. So we would have multiple for statements and it would still run pretty fine without interfering with each other. The thing that comes after is I is less than 4. This is the condition we want to satisfy in order for the code to run. So I has to be less than 4. And then here, the last thing is the update. It says I plus plus here, so we're adding I every time we return to this line of code. So if we start with for int I equals 0, I is less than 4, and I plus plus, the first time we start, I would be initialized as 0. And we would run through the code with I being 0. Then, after hitting the end of the code block, we would return again to the for part. Then we would update the value of the I. We would add 1 to the I value and run the code again with I being 1 now. We would do that multiple times again and again, each time updating the value of I until I becomes 3. Now we'll go back up to the for statement when I becomes 3. And we'll add 1 to I again, which would make it 4. Now if I is 4, the condition wouldn't be satisfied. And we just skip through the executable block of code and go right to the next block of code.